That's around about 7 o'clock now. Good evening to this edition of the Planning Committee, August the 12th, 2025. First item of business tonight is apologies. I'm aware that I've had apologies for Councillor Gorton, Jill Burnett-Faulkner and Councillor Fear, and I've got substitutes for Councillor Fear by Jill Heeson and Davy Grocott standing in for Richard Gorton. Is that correct? Is there any more apologies? I see none. Thank you. Just before we go any further, I'm not aware of any fire drills this evening. If the alarm bells do sound, then please make your way through the nearest exit and assemble in front of the building there. Item 2 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Do I hear of any declarations of interest on the agenda this evening? I'm seeing a negative response. Thank you very much. Item 3 brings us on to minutes of the previous meeting that was held on the 15th of July. Are we content that that was a true and accurate record of proceedings that evening for those that were here? I've seen lots of nodding of heads. Thank you very much. That's a true and accurate record. That's passed. That brings us on to the first substantive item of business this evening, and that's application for major development land of Buckleston Wood Lane, east of Rock Lane, Loggerheads, Shropshire Homes. I believe we have a... Just pause business while we acquire Councillor Crisp.
Is that him pulling wheelies because the sun left out?
Better late than never, Councillor Crisp. Glad you can make it. No declarations of interest on the agenda tonight? Okay, just checking. Okay, agenda item 4, land north of Buckleston Wood Lane. And we have a presentation on this, I believe.
Chair. As members will recall, this application was deferred at the July meeting to enable officers to enter into discussions with the developer regarding the unadopted roads and to gain more information on bin collection arrangements. Also, a supplementary point was also raised seeking clarification as to whether the pedestrian link to Rock Lane to the west of the site would be suitable for disabled access. Since the last committee meeting, revised plans have been received, indicating that the majority of the internal roads within the site are now to be constructed to adoptable standards and will therefore be serviced by the local authority waste collection service. So if you look on the screen now, in sort of the, I suppose it's a vaguely pink or lilac-y colour, all those roads are adopted. So there's only some very, very small sections of private drives that won't be adopted. And therefore, all plots would be served by direct access for refuse vehicles, with the exception of plots 32 to 35 and 50 to 51. So a total of 6 plots, or 4% of the total number of units within the scheme. These are all these plots. I'll zoom into the site plan so you can see it a bit clearer. So where my cursor is here, there's 2 pairs of semis. I don't know if you can see that there. So the end of the adopted highway is there. So that it's just literally a very short distance to those units. And then the second pair of semi-detached houses which isn't off a adopted highway, are these units here. So again, it's within a relatively short distance, all within the well within the minimum 30-metre drag distance. So therefore, it's considered that the collection arrangements are acceptable. There's also been a tracking plan for refuse and fire service vehicles provided, which shows that the refuse vehicles and emergency services vehicles can sort of manoeuvre around all of the estate effectively. As I previously mentioned, members requested confirmation about the link to the adjacent public right-of-way, which is in this area here, and the developers have confirmed that that will be constructed of a surface that will be suitable for wheelchairs and people with mobility problems. As such, it's considered that the proposal would provide a connected development and would therefore be acceptable, and the concerns that were raised at the last meeting have now been adequately addressed.
Thank you very much for that. I believe we have a supporter of the scheme. Would you like to make your way forward, please? You've got 5 minutes to make your case. You start when you're ready.
Working.
Yeah.
Good evening, Chair and fellow committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you again this evening's meeting. My name is Rob Perrins and I'm the Technical Director at Shropshire Homes Limited. Members will have reviewed the report from your planning officers, which recommends approval of this reserved matters application. When the application was last presented at the July committee meeting, where this application was considered, members raised several questions about the refuse strategy and in particular sought clarity on how refuse vehicles would facilitate refuse collection when accessing unadopted roads and needing to manoeuvre around them. In response to these concerns, and notwithstanding there is no policy conflict, Shropshire Homes have revisited the scheme and revised the road hierarchy and the road adoption plan to increase the extent of adopted road within the site to ensure that refuse and emergency vehicles are able to access almost all properties off an adopted road. Only 6 homes are accessed off shared driveways. These are plots 32 to 35 and 50 and 51, which represents just 4% of the total dwellings proposed. Refuse collection points are provided for these homes that ensure the distance to the collection point, where the refuse truck will collect the bins, will be less than 30 metres from the home and in line with building control standards. The road layout is in full compliance with Staffordshire County Council's Highway Design Guide, and we have provided full tracking details for both emergency and refuse collection vehicles using vehicle lengths of 8.68 metres and 10.32 metres respectively to demonstrate these vehicles can fully manoeuvre the road system in the site. An updated highway plan has been provided to demonstrate the road hierarchy, including major and minor access roads, minor access ways, and mews courts that all meet adoptable standards, with appropriate access and turning capacity for both refuse and emergency service vehicles. We very much hope the additional information we've provided to officers gives members clarity on the points raised at the July meeting. This development is very important to Shropshire Homes and our employees, and we hope that members are minded to agree with your officer's recommendation to approve this application subject to planning conditions. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for that. You may resume your seat. Thank you. Okay, over to you, members. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to our officers for the clarification that we can see on screen, and thanks to the applicant's representative for making that statement. I understand from it that there has been some change to the highways, and I think that's what this committee wanted to see, was an adoptable highway to the very fullest extent for the various reasons we discussed at our last meeting. I think that is more or less covers what we discussed last time before we voted to defer the application to tonight. it would be fantastic if for applications of this nature, we had access to a map of the high contrast that we've got in front of us tonight, because it would also help officers to be able to answer questions on the night, and we wouldn't have to defer. Can I ask a question about a different aspect of the application, which does appear in the report? The Staffordshire Police Designing Out Crime Officer made a number of comments regarding boundary treatments relating to the properties, in particular proposed fencing at the rear of properties and 0.9 metre high timber post and 3 rail fencing, which the police considered ill-advised. Can our officers advise what final proposals there are? Can we have a look where those things are proposed? So if anywhere on this development those boundary treatments appear, is it possible for us to condition to the fullest extent the recommendations that have been put in place there by the police that commented on the application? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Holland.
And yes, thank you, Councillor Holland. Yes, we've got a boundary treatments condition in the report. So essentially what they'd be required to do is provide those details for approval. There'll also be an informative on the decision notice, which refers to all the points that the police have raised and the requirements to meet secure by design standards. So we'd be expecting the details submitted to discharge the conditions would meet that requirement.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Holland?
It does, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just get clarification on the bin collection point for the 4 properties? You say that it's less than 30 metres, but the bin collection point is, there's still another 20 to 30 metres of unadopted road before we get to the highway. So it looks like you're expecting the crew to walk on the unadopted road 30 metres to collect the bins from the bin collection point. Now, we all know unadopted roads won't be treated, they won't be gritted, they could be covered in moss. It's a bit of a safety hazard for the crew. So I'm just wondering, could I get a clarification? Have you got something that you can enlarge so that we can see exactly where the bin collection point is in relation to the highway? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
So yeah, if you can see here, these are the four units which are concerned. So the adopted highway finishes here. So from the actual properties, there's bin collection points at the rear of the units, and it's well within the 30-metre drag distance to the point of the adopted highway here. I think in terms of distances, we're talking of between 23 and 29 metres. That would be the total distance that they'd be required to, so well within the building regulation standards, as the applicant referred to in their speech.
Can I just come back? I'm not very sure. I'm sure I'm understanding this well. The purple lines, is that where the residents have to take their bins to, the central point, where the blue line starts on the way up to the highway? Are we expecting the crew to walk the blue line to collect where the purple lines all meet?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah.
So we're expecting the crew to do 20 metres of walking to collect the bins?
No,
So it really is 50 plus metres, the bin collection point, really then?
No, it's not. It's just the blue. So you've got the adopted. That's the end of the adopted road, and then all they're doing is walking to here. So
who's walking to there? The crew or the
crew? Yeah, essentially the crew is. It's like that is only. It is on here.
The recommended distance for operatives to travel to pick the bin up is 25 metres. So it's 30 metres for residents to take their bin to a bin collection point. And the recommended maximum distance in the legislation for operatives is 25 metres. And this is well within that.
So the blue line is well within that distance. As you can see there, it's a very short distance. That is, you know, that's what 10 meters or so. That's what the operatives would be. So as you often see when your bins are collected in whatever street you live in, you'll see them go in 10 meters back to pick up a bin, and it's pretty standard procedure. So yeah, the residents would take them. The pink line would be the route the resident would use to take their bin out, and then the waste operatives would follow that blue line there. So again, about 10 meters or so travel.
So why can't the bin collection point be at the end of the blue line? Why can't the residents be expected to take their bins to the adopted highway? Again, I say again, the unadopted highway won't be gritted. It could be slippy with moss, it'll have snow, ice, and we'd expect crews, employees of Newcastle Borough Council to walk on moss, ice, whatever, to collect bins, just because I still think the bin collection point is in the wrong place.
I suppose it's achieving a happy medium really between the two. And as I've said, the guidance is up to 25 metres for operatives. So it's not an excessive distance because it's well within that 25 metres.
Good chair.
Do we have any other comments? Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Chair. I respect enormously the views of Councillor Hutchison. He's extremely knowledgeable about the way in which our operatives work. And I think it is a fair point to say that wherever possible, we ought to be arranging bin collection points so they are directly adjacent to an adopted highway. Having said which, I stand by my previous comments, which is that we were right as a committee to ask for a greater extent of adopted highway, and the applicant was right to submit the revised plans that we're looking at now. As a resident myself and as a councillor for the Westlands, in the Westlands ward, we are a people of long driveways, some of us, and in my view, some of our driveways are longer than the distances that we're referring to here. And I think, again, from the plan that, not this one, but the one that was previously in front of us, the expectation is that residents are going to store their bins at the rear of those properties. You can see there is a red square indicating where the purple line starts. And I think that it's right to say the 30 metres is being measured from that storage point. In practice, I am aware that a lot of residents will perhaps not store their bins at the back, but perhaps at the side of their property. So they will have an even smaller distance to go. Other members may want to raise comments about other items, other issues related to the report, but I'm conscious that nobody has done so. I think the issue that I have is the same issue that the 4 representations that received from members of the public on this application have, and very sadly, it is not something that's within our power to change. That is that the key objection to this housing estate is that people don't want it. It is unnecessary new housing. It is overdevelopment in the village of Loggerheads. We are powerless at this meeting, it is worth repeating, we are powerless at this meeting to object to the principle of the development. That has been granted on appeal, and it's not therefore something that we can turn down. I respect again what Councillor Hutchison said, but I feel as though an appeal on the basis that we've indicated, if we were to refuse this on the basis of long bin drag distances, that would be indefensible as appeal, because the distances are well within, as we've heard described to us, the limits imposed by our policy and by statute. So I am minded to approve this reserved matters application. The problems, the concerns that were raised at the last meeting do seem to me to be satisfied. And while I agree with objectors to the scheme that this is not an application that we would wish to see come forward, at this stage, I can see no valid reasons why we should turn it down. And for that reason, I am minded to vote approve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. I must admit I tend to agree with your comments there, 100%. there any other councillor wishing to speak on this? Okay, so we've had it formally proposed from Councillor Holland.
We haven't, but with reluctance, I will move it. Move the recommendations
Thank you very much,
as printed.
Councillor Holland. And from the chair, I will second that. Do we see any other counter proposals? I see none. So in that case, it's been formally proposed and seconded. Can I see a show of hands in support of that, please? Against? Oh. Against? That's unanimous. That item is clearly passed. Thank you very much, councillors. Brings us on to the second application, item 5, to be found on page 21 to 26 of your agenda pack. Application for major development, Morstan House, the Midway. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So members, I'm sure will recall planning permission was granted earlier this year for the change of use and side extension to Morstan House, which is shown here edged in red, so at the junction of Church Street, the Midway and Lower Street, to provide students only living accommodation in the form of 126 studios. Permission is now sought for the variation of conditions 2 and 9 of that planning permission to seek approval for amendments to the approved plans. Condition 2 lists all the approved plans, and condition 9 requires the works to be carried out in accordance with certain plans that relate to certain plans and documents that relate to landscape and tree related matters. So this is the building here, just in case members need a reminder. So that's the view from Lower Street, and you can just see there off to the side the edge of the Midway car park. And this is the view from the Midway, and another one along the Midway. So the principal external change relates to the fenestration on the building, so the window arrangements. So this, what you can see here, the top 2 images show the approved scheme, and the bottom 2 images show what's proposed now. So in the extant scheme, the approved scheme, the positioning of the windows would have created some compromised living conditions, with windows partly obscured by the existing structure. So the revised proposals that are before you now uses the existing structure in a more successful way, with the windows proportioned and arranged better to complement the building. So this shows the approved scheme. So you can see at the top there the nature of the windows proposed, and then you can see here the revised proposal. So on the approved scheme, looking at materials, the building was to be finished in brick slip cladding with the new, sorry, I'll just go back one, with the new side extension, which is just here on the far left of the screen, finished in metal effect cladding with a vertical section in the centre of copper effect cladding, and then on the Lower Street elevation, on the lower ground floor, was to be timber cladding. So the amended proposal would be very similar in that the would still be clad in brick slips and metal panelling with copper cladding for that central element. But the lower section here now, which you can see on that image there, will now be clad in the light colour cladding rather than timber. And the reasoning for that is that it's considered to be a more robust product. So the materials would be in actual fact very similar to what was proposed previously, and what I can show you on this screen is the materials proposed previously and the materials proposed now. So the images on the left-hand side of the screen are what was proposed previously. So you can see there's the two different colours of grey. Then you've got the light grey cladding, the dark grey cladding, and then the copper effect cladding. And then the images on the right-hand side are what's proposed now. So still got the same or very similar copper effect cladding and the light grey metal cladding. The bricks are still to be two different colours of grey, one much darker than the other. You'll see that within the report, your officer's view is that we actually have a preference for these warmer tones of grey that were proposed in the original scheme. But we're proposing a condition that requires the exact details of the materials to be agreed, so we can look at that as part of that condition application. And then the final change that's proposed externally is the location of the substation. So on the approved scheme, the substation is here with the purple circle around it. So it was to be accessed off Lower Street. The electricity provider had issue with that though, and confirmed that they would be unable to access a substation in that location or any other position along Lower Street due to the heavily trafficked nature of Lower Street and the lack of a safe working environment around that part of the site. So what's proposed now is to locate the substation up here adjacent to the Midway, which obviously has is a lot quieter in terms of the traffic. So your officers are satisfied that the proposed amendments wouldn't have any adverse impact on the form and character of the conservation area or the setting of nearby listed buildings, and therefore recommend the scheme for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I believe we have a supporter of the scheme. Would you like to make your way forward, please? 5 minutes to make your case. You can begin when you're ready by pressing the button in front of you.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair and members. My name is David Ty. I'm planning agent for this application and represent the applicant, WUKPG. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak in support. After this committee granted permission for the refurbishment of Morstan House for student homes last July, the applicant secured development finance and then appointed a design team to develop detailed plans for the building control stage and delivery of the development. The design team is extensive and includes structural, mechanical, fire and electrical engineers, amongst others. The team identified several issues with the approved drawings which need to be addressed to enable development to be progressed. And the changes sought by this application are relatively limited and are described by the architect brochure submitted in support of the application. And Rachel's summarised some of the main changes, which are essentially adjustment to building fenestration. Importantly, the scheme's much more sustainable in terms of construction because it retains more of the existing building envelope and therefore reduces demolition waste. And then we've got internal changes as well, and that's going to assist with people moving around the building and most importantly fire safety with new fire escape arrangements. We've touched on the kind of material palette and the adjustments proposed. Importantly as well, we've relocated the generator room from the roof, which is now internal to the building. So we've got a cleaner roof line, and relocation of the substation is required to meet the access requirements of the electricity provider. So cumulatively, these changes are essential for the applicant to be able to progress the development. The proposal's been carefully assessed as usual by your officers, and we're supportive of their recommendation for approval with conditions. So with your support this evening, Morstan House will start on site early next year and be operational for the start of the 2027 academic year. The applicant has a main contractor appointed and a local supply chain in place, and also a building manager. So Homes for Students will be the operator and the manager of the building. In addition to supporting the development of the university, the proposal will also bring new life, vitality and a safer environment to this part of the town centre. The committee report describes how the scheme meets with national and local policy and identified material considerations, and I respectfully ask the committee to support this application. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much for your input. Thank you. Let me return to your seat. Okay, over to members. Councillor Williams, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, thanks to the officers that have worked on this planning application and worked with the committee. This is the third time probably this application has come before the committee, and some of the shortfalls have been sorted. One of my main points, and I said it before the last committee meeting, is the midway itself. We've got photographs they can show us. It's just some soft, and over at the corner, across from St Giles, you've got the garden, as you might say, where the entrance is. But as we come along Midway, in the southerly direction, then we've got the entrances now to Morstan House, and then the extension that the Morstan House goes into the car park. And then we've got the gantry that goes over, which will come under the planning application for the Midway car park. And my main concern is it's a street within the town centre. It's not a very nice place to go down at the moment in time. It goes under the gantry that's deliveries. You've got the pedestrian gantry across the delivery point for Boots and the other in the Roebuck Centre. And it's not a nice place to be at all. And what I would like to see is with this application, not so much again, but are they working with the Midway developer to make that street a lot more user-friendly? It's not nice at night time. Lighting is terrible. One of the main reasons on the car park, non-use of the car park, as people working in the town centre, wouldn't use that car park at night time because they've got to go down a horrible, nasty road. But it's right in the centre of the town centre. So can we have a look at any soft planting across there? And as this developer works with the developer of Midway car park to get better street scene. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Let's come back on that now.
I think talking about the overall street scene there, obviously each developer can only look at the land within their application site. So on this scheme, for example, there is soft landscaping proposed around the corner. There's existing trees there on the lower street frontage, but there isn't any space on the Midway elevation of the building for there to be any soft landscaping to improve how it looks visually. But certainly this is one of the main reasons why we were so supportive of this scheme initially, was because it will bring life into what, as you say, at the moment is a particularly unpleasant part of the town centre. So a combination of this scheme and the Midway, there will be a huge amount then of activity around both buildings. There will be lighting schemes. There's all the security measures that are proposed for each building. But the fact that there will be lots of life around there and people coming and going from the building means that it will inject some life into that area and make it a safer place in doing that. So we're very keen to see this scheme implemented, and obviously the Midway one as well, because I think it will make it a huge improvement to the Midway. But the developers their hands are tied really in terms of what they can do outside of the site. You know, that over the walkway over the top is to remain, so they can't do anything about that, unfortunately. But I think that the whole fact that both of these developments will be lived in and will make a huge improvement.
Thank you very much, Rachel. I think probably when the Midway comes in, we can add a little bit more strength to actually make that street a more pleasant street, and take your point, more people will move around, the safety is going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Chair. I think our officer's quite right. Bringing the site back into use will have a beneficial effect. If you look at the other end of the Midway, it is a pleasant place to be. Keel House there, which is occupied, faces an opticians and a nail bar, and it's the rear pedestrian access to the View Cinema car park. And I think if there were more people, more residents and businesses using that other end of town, the other end of the Midway, there would be that natural surveillance, there would be that footfall that discouraged negative things. Looking at the application, I'm reminded of one of the reasons I love town planning, which is that you can apply for anything. It doesn't have to be physically possible, but you can apply for and receive consent for a building where all the windows are in the wrong place. And that's what's happened here. So we won't revisit what we discussed when we looked at the application last time. That is approved. But I believe that students do deserve windows, and I believe that electricians deserve a safe working environment. So I regard the application positively. Could we take a look at the electricity substation? In its previous approved location, it was very ugly, but it was in a place where hardly anybody would see it, and indeed it would be inaccessible even to Sparkies in order for it to be maintained and used. In its new location, it is much closer to St Giles. It is a larger building that is proposed. It's not going to be clad in anthracite grey like the previous iteration. But looking at the drawings we can see on screen now, the indicative drawing makes it look as though this structure is going to be made and faced with a light-coloured brick that doesn't seem to me to match anything. Doesn't match the materials palette of the application. It doesn't match what's across the road on the other side of the Midway, and it doesn't match St Giles Church. So can our officers tell us what proposed materials are expected for that, and what would their reaction be if I was to propose a condition requiring it to be surfaced in red sandstone, ideally with pointed windows to match St Giles? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Holland.
So the only details I believe that we've got of what's proposed is what's on this plan, which, as you say, does suggest that it will be a light brown, whether it's cladding or brick, I'm not entirely sure, but we could absolutely put a condition on that requires details of the materials to be approved. I'm not so sure that we could justify sandstone, but we could certainly look for something that was perhaps in a darker recessive colour that perhaps isn't that would make it less prominent. But I do hear what you're saying, that it is probably in a less ideal location, but we have to take account of what the electricity provider is saying, and I think although it is in a less ideal location, it's still of a relatively small scale, and I think with the landscaping and boundary treatments that are proposed, it will it won't look overly prominent, and I certainly don't think it would have an adverse impact upon St Giles's Church across the road. But yes, we could put a condition on requiring details to be agreed.
Would you be happy with that, Councillor Holland?
I suppose so. I'm disappointed that we can't require a higher aesthetic, but I do understand it's a building that has function. It's a structure that has to exist, and we are told that it cannot exist in its previous form. It's regrettable because that corner there, we talked about soft landscape, that end of the development site is the part of it that is all soft landscaping and could potentially be made to look very much nicer. I think so long as our officers are content with the surfacing and they're happy to bear in mind, my thoughts and the committee's thoughts, if anybody else chooses to express them, I think we should be asking for, for it either to match something in the street scene and to be as unobtrusive as it possibly can be, given that it has a role to fulfill. It's been a long time since we looked at a previous application for this building, which would have resulted in adding height to it. I think we took a very strong view that the listed building opposite the church needs to be respected, and it would be a shame if we allowed it to be encroached upon, even in a small way. But having looked at the various elements of the application and having accepted that if the windows are in the wrong place, it makes more sense to arrange the insides of the building to match the outsides and not the other way around, I am generally supportive of the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Any other councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Williams.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Talking about this substation, now we have the development next door, car park. Will they need another substation? Or will they share this one? No, it's just technical. There isn't much room in the car park. We haven't forgot the plans where the substation is going to go, for the car park, the Midway car park. Will they be a link into this substation? Or each development has its own substation? It seems a waste of energy.
I don't know with any certainty, and I can't remember the details of the Midway scheme as to what was proposed, but I would imagine that they would need their own separate independent substation. But I was just thinking during that discussion, my understanding is that substations are actually permitted developments anyway. So although the developer is showing the details here and we're looking to ensure that we get the best scheme possible by requiring details of conditions of materials, it is actually the case that they could construct one and implement one under permitted development without planning permission. But yeah, I would imagine that the Midway would have their own. Yeah.
Any other comments, please? Councillor Holland.
We are, I think, entitled to interrogate the location and the materials out of which a substation is. But I mean, we've done that before at this committee, particularly in relation to a housing application in my ward, I think. So I'm prepared to move the recommendation with that additional condition, strengthening our oversight of the materials and the finishing of that substation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. In the absence of any other comments, I'll take that proposal as moved. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Holland?
Just to come back to the materials, so the developer comes back and says, well, they can't. How does that leave us then? Are we just recommending that they actually do brickwork around the substation or material very similar to the building? Is that left to yourself? I mean, the point of making, I could leave it to the chair and vice chair to make that decision. Thank you.
If members consider it's necessary for that decision to be made through the chair, then yes, we could do that. But ordinarily, it would be for officers to approve the details that they consider professionally are appropriate.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. So we've had it formally proposed. Do I see a seconder? Councillor Bryan.
Second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. It formally proposed and seconded. Can I see a show of hands, please, in support of that? And that's a unanimous response. Thank you very much, councillors. That item is clearly passed. That brings us on to agenda item 6. And this is Hartshorn Properties Limited, Rosevale Road, Crackley, Newcastle. Over to you guys.
Right, thank you, Chair. Yes, firstly, we've got one supplementary item to the report that I'll just verbally report to you now. We received some revised comments from the local flood authority late yesterday on the amended drainage details that have been provided by the applicant. Essentially, the local flood authority have raised concerns about the level of information that's been provided within that and have asked for some extra information to be submitted, including connections to the Severn Trent sewer discharge rates and some detailed design of the drainage strategy. And officers are recommending that if members are minded to approve the application, it is therefore requested that approval is given to the Planning Services Director to issue the decision under delegated powers once the updated drainage information has been provided and agreed by the local flood authority. If this can't be agreed, then the application will come back to the committee for determination. Turning to the details of the scheme, this application seeks permission for the demolition of the existing workshop and office building on the site, which is based at Volvo Trucks on the Parkhouse Industrial Estate in Crackley, and the erection of a new workshop office building, the refurbishment of 2 existing buildings, and alterations to the parking and servicing layout. So essentially what we've got here is the buildings outlined in red there. Those are the 2 buildings that are to be demolished. The buildings in grey here are to be refurbished. And then the revised site layout plan is shown on here. So you've got a new L-shaped building which will provide the workshop and offices, refurbed building here, refurb building here, and then some improvements to the access, parking and lorry parking arrangements within the site. So we've got details of the building. So it's sort of a conventional size building here. And the refurbished buildings would be of the same colour palette and materials as the new building. In terms of the principles of development, the proposed new and refurbished buildings would provide a more efficient use and a more modern facility for the business and generate up to 12 new jobs, and therefore they would provide clear economic benefits. So the principle of development is generally considered to be acceptable by officers. The new and refurbished buildings would enhance the appearance of the site by replacing the some of the existing buildings, which are in quite old structures, as you can see here. They're sort of typical of the time, sort of mid-20th century sheds, essentially, in flat roof offices, and their replacement with a more appropriately designed building, which would be more in keeping with the surrounding industrial units on the industrial estate. The existing vehicle access would be utilised with a new internal access road and parking areas, as I explained earlier, and the Highway Authority are happy with this arrangement. Although there are no residential properties within the immediate vicinity of the site, there are properties further to the north, as you can see over here. So the applicants have provided air quality and noise assessment reports, which demonstrate that the development wouldn't adversely impact on these properties. And this is supported in the comments raised by the Environmental Health Officer. In addition, there's some additional landscaping to be provided within the development to ensure that the scheme provides the required 10% increase in biodiversity net gain. So therefore, planning permission is recommended subject to the additional drainage information being provided and agreed with the local flood authority.
Thank you, Tom. I believe we have a supporter of the scheme here with us tonight. Would you like to step forward and make your case, please? You have 5 minutes to make that, commencing when you press the button in front of you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Melanie Chan, one of the planning consultants for this scheme.
Can you just press the button again? It's not on, I think. It should light up. Yeah. Sorry to stop you again. It hasn't come on yet. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
The applicant has occupied the site for over 40 years and has operated a successful truck and bus servicing and maintenance site, providing MOT preparation and on-site testing. The site is a key location for the wider business network and customer base. However, their current national infrastructure of accommodation is insufficient to meet current requirements or future business needs. The applicant is committed to achieving their climate change goals in alignment with the UK government's wider objective of decarbonising the road network and the vehicles that use it. Part of the applicant's decarbonisation plan is to transition to hydrogen and electric powered vehicles, which this application seeks to facilitate. This full application seeks to facilitate the reconfiguration of the existing Volvo Trucks facility to meet the aforementioned needs through the construction of a new workshop, refurbishment of 2 MOT facilities, and subsequent demolition of an existing single-storey workshop within the site. The location of the proposed reconfigured site and the previous use of the existing site for over 40 years provides a clear principle of development. The site is within a recognised employment area. The proposal will ultimately retain an existing business in Newcastle-under-Lyme and will ensure this brownfield site is reused into a positive employment development. The proposal will bring a new employment hub and thus create a positive economic impact to the wider area by employing an additional 10 to 12 staff in addition to the existing 28 employees. The proposal will provide the applicant with state-of-the-art buildings that will not only improve the overall appearance of the site, whilst preserving the character of the wider employment area, but will accommodate improved mechanic service equipment and infrastructure that will enhance their service quality on maintaining vehicle safety. Ultimately, the facilities proposed in this application will enable the applicant to proactively fulfil their commitment to transitioning workshop operations and service provision towards supporting hydrogen and electric powered vehicles, whilst phasing out reliance on fossil fuel-based vehicles over the next decade. The proposal will also allow a new building with improved energy efficiencies to be built and maintained. The applicant fully endorses the case officer's recommendation for approval set out within the committee report and its conclusions that the proposal wholly accords with the policies contained within the development plan and the national planning policy framework. Further to a late response from the lead local flood authority, the applicant has not been able to provide a response given the limited time available. However, we are committed to resolving any drainage matters with the LLFA and agree that outstanding matters can be delegated to officers to resolve in the coming weeks. We trust that the committee can validate and agree with the officers' conclusions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your contribution. You may resume your seat, please. Open for members for debate. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Chair. There's no supplementary on this one. So what we're being asked by our officers tonight is a novelty. Is it something that's come in the last 24 hours? I understand that.
Yeah, literally yesterday afternoon about 4 o'clock. So it's been too late to provide a written supplementary note. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I having read through the report that we do have and listened tonight, I think generally very happy with what's proposed. So I would be willing to move the recommendations as printed, with the proviso that we're delegating authority with the greatest of deference to our service director. Could I ask that that is done in consultation with our chair, because I would like for us to be satisfied as a committee that if there was anything that arose that was new, it could be brought back to our attention at that point. But assuming that the lead local flood authority can be satisfied with further information from the applicant, everything else that's there seems fine to me. So I'd be willing to move that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Holland, and I would agree with that recommendation from yourself there, with the service director, should that need be required. Any other member wishing to speak? Councillor Williams, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, again, it's really good to be able to make an input to this planning application, bringing jobs and extending the services that the company provides. One of the concerns I've got is the boundary treatment to the east. It is the east that backs onto the fields at Cratley Bank. There's a mention in the report, but really, really strengthen that boundary. Any gaps or whatever, but look at, I think it's trees and privet hedges all the way through there. Of course, things might be disturbed or whatever, but if they aren't, will they enhance that boundary treatment?
Yeah, and we've got a condition on there which is requiring details of boundary treatments. Yeah. In accordance with we've got on the plans. There's some details of some improvements to the boundary treatments, and then additional landscaping to meet the biodiversity gain. So essentially, those improvements should provide a secure environment and to the site.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Crocott.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, John's put one of the things forward that I was on about. I've been liaising with quite a few people at Red Street and Woodrow Place, and quite a few races, shall I say, and all that kind of stuff. So anything like that would help. Second one is obviously based around Chesterton and developments there. And I'm glad to see the recommendations regarding the dust mitigation and different things, as obviously that there. Due to the April actual development, we've had quite a few problems down there from certain people who you're probably aware of. So I'm glad to see that. And also the one about the construction hours and obviously the noise mitigation. That's once again based along different ones in Chesterton, and that people are quite sensitive on that. And obviously it's the next ward up, so as long as we keep that in place, I think that'd be quite good. And obviously the actual thing itself is absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Crocott. Any other members wishing to speak? No, I can't see any enthusiasm for that. So we've had it recommended and proposed by Councillor Holland to move this application. I'm happy from the chair's position to second that proposal. Can I see any counter proposals? In which case we'll take a vote on this then. We've had it formally proposed and seconded that we approve this application subject to the recommendations printed. Can I see a show of hands in support of that, please? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That item is clearly passed. Thank you. Thank you. That moves us on to item 7 on the agenda, which is one of our old favourites, to be found on pages 37 to 38, an update on the enforcement case of 5 Bogs Cottage.
There's no further update at the moment, Chair, that I'm able to give.
You know, you raise my expectations each time that's printed on there, you know, but okay, I take it everybody's read the report. Are we content to keep it on the agenda, coming back in 2 months' time? Can I see a show of hands in support of that, please? And that item is clearly carried. Also, thank you. I'm not aware of any urgent business. Any urgent business? which leads me to say thank you very much, councillors. The meeting is now closed. Thank you to our officers and members for your input this evening. Have a safe journey home. Take care. The meeting is now closed. Thank you.